Welcome back to the channel. My name's Ardil and today is another episode of Sound Off. Firstly, we're going to be starting off by comparing the products side by side and giving you guys a bit of an information overload about what the products that we have in front of me. Later on, we'll be sitting inside the vehicle, listening to the factory system and comparing that again after the install with the aftermarket system to how it sounds with that new system. So let's get going. So what do we have in front of us here? On this side of me, I have the factory Harman Kardon system out of a brand new BMW G87 M2, and on this side I have the Audison sound system that we're going to be installing. Today, obviously, I'm going to be going through a little bit about the specs of each side and also giving you a bit of a side-by-side comparison, just discussing a little bit more about what you get from the stock system versus an aftermarket system, so you guys at home can make your decision, and I'm sure by the end of it, you'll only want to be doing one thing. But let's go through the actual system as it stands. But before we get onto that, I just want to go through what you actually get from BMW as options. So there's 3 different options that you can spec. On some cars there is the 4th, but we're not going to go into that. But the main 3 things that you're going to be speccing, this has been from the E series to the F series to this new series, which is the G series model. So this is out of a G87 M2. Obviously a phenomenal car, looks absolutely incredible, and the system in it though is the same as you get in a 1 series. So why is that? Basically, as BMW, when they're looking, or any manufacturer for that matter, when they're building a system in a car or choosing a different options list, firstly it comes down to cost. It's how cheaply one of them can be made and put into a vehicle, and that's all it comes down to, not so much about the actual sound quality. So the 3 systems you can actually have from BMW is the base system, Hi-Fi and Harman Kardon, or HK. Base system, what that actually is and the way to identify that is basically having no tweeter in the car. You'll just see a little blank on the side, but it will pop up a little picture here. Next is Hi-Fi. Hi-Fi is the middle package, which basically has a tweeter and no Harman Kardon written on the grille. Next up, Harman Kardon, which is what we have here. The Harman Kardon system basically has Harman Kardon written on the grille, and that is the way to identify it. So that's, first of all, understanding what you have in your BMW currently. Now, moving on to actually what we get from Harman Kardon. So, a couple of products. This is basically the entire set out of the car, bar the center speaker, which we don't talk about too much because it's not really needed on the aftermarket side. However, you've got a tweeter, a 4-inch speaker, another 4-inch speaker, 8-inch component, and then your amplification. So on the system that we're going to be doing, this is one of the packages from our website. So we've got loads of different options depending on spec of what you want to go for, but this is really popular one of ours. So this is a stock look, so you're not going to see anything when the install is finished, but what we'll do later on in the video, you'll actually be able to hear what the final results are between this and this. Most of the time when you get in your car, you're listening to Harman Kardon and you go, it's not loud enough, which is the biggest problem really. Second of all, it just doesn't sound very great. It sounds very low and muffled, and the bass is really rubbish. The reason is because of these products that are completely hidden. You'll also find that on the back of these components, or if you try even Googling these components, it is incredibly difficult to find any spec that's actually reputable, good information on any of these products. I mean, they've literally got nothing written on the speaker. Even when you Google that part, even BMW don't even want to give you the information about how much power these can actually handle, what this cone is actually made of, and all sorts. So it's really important that you, when you're upgrading a system with whatever one you're choosing to go for, if you're looking at speccing Harman Kardon in your new G87 M2 or any vehicle, actually understanding what you're getting for that money and whether it's even worth it. And then you can compare that side by side with stuff like the Audison gear that we've got here as our kind of main go-to solution for this vehicle. There's lots of different options, however this is a really popular option. They sound really good. So now let's do that side by side comparison of the two tweeters. First of all, what even is a tweeter? A tweeter is dealing with higher frequency of sound, and we'll put up a little diagram of them, which basically goes through where tweeters would normally play as a rough guide. So this is dealing with higher frequency, so all about clarity in essence. So when you're listening to a system, how clear it sounds, how kind of beautiful it sounds in a vehicle, that all happens with a tweeter and a mid-range, but mostly to deal with a tweeter. This is the factory Harman Kardon component. So this weighs in at 57 grams, okay? And then we're going to weigh over to the Audison component, and that weighs in at 60 grams. So not much weight difference, but also what you've got to remember about this kit is there are limitations to it, okay? This kit is designed to go into a stock location, so it has to sit into exactly the same location as the Harman Kardon one. So it's for those people that want a complete stock look, but still a big upgrade in sound. So what this actual component is and what it's doing is dealing with those higher frequencies. You might find in a lot of cars, you might find that there's no clarity at all. So if you've got the bass system from BMW, you'll know that that has no clarity whatsoever. And that's because you don't have a tweeter even fitted in the car. So that can be added by adding something like this. But even with a tweeter like this added to the vehicle, they can still sound pretty poor. Even with this fitted, it can sound pretty poor as well. The product is only as good as the control you actually have and the way the installation is done. So this component, how much control do you actually have of this tweeter? Through the factory settings. So if you have a stock radio or even an aftermarket radio for that matter, you go into sound settings on your stock BMW, all you've got is balance, fader, treble. Some people like this M2 have Logic 7 surround, but very, very, very limited in terms of control. You can increase and decrease the treble. However, that's the customer side. Behind the scenes, there is a full EQ already in the car. So as it knows, when you turn up the treble, it already adjusts things in the EQ completely separately, and that's all part of the brain and the amplification, which we'll move on to later. It's already all done in the background. You actually have no control over the system. So this is really, really pointless because you have zero control over this product. You can increase and decrease that treble, but realistically it's doing really pretty much nothing because there's an EQ behind the scenes that makes sure everything is safe and not going to blow. But it just isn't really the best sound. Again, you can find loads and loads of info, and we'll put up all the links for all of the products that we've got on this side. Reason is because everything is listed. All of the components that are installed into this component that manufacture to make this do what it does is everything is listed. And I'm talking everything from the reason why they've used this design in terms of the grille cover, the reason why the tweeter is actually manufactured in such a way, the cable that they've used, the magnet that they're using, everything is listed. Whereas on this, good luck trying to find any info on this. It's just ridiculous. They don't share anything. And the reason is because probably what's inside it. They don't want to share it because they know you probably wouldn't want to buy it. Moving on now to the 4 inches in the door. So the 4-inch component here, so this sits into the door. This is dealing with that mid-range style of frequency. So this plays relatively high and pretty low as well because it's got to bridge a very big gap all the way from a tweeter frequency all the way down to the 8-inch frequencies. So it's got quite a lot of work to do. So you would have thought that a lot of money would have been spent on something like this. I mean, if you Google this, I think they're going for about £30. Says enough about it. But what's actually in this component? The biggest thing, so as you go lower down in frequency ranges, so as you go to bass, as you go to mid bass, the support and structure that you have on a speaker makes the difference, okay? So with any speaker, as you go lower down, it's all about the structure of it, how it's bolted down into the vehicle to make it nice and solid and really get what's called excursion of a cone. So basically that cone, how much you can move upwards and downwards to how to create it to sound, okay? And you'll basically get more bass, more mid bass from a speaker that's correctly bolted down, correctly supported, a decent magnet, decent cone, decent rollover design, and decent engineering behind it, and you will then create great sound. However, what have they done here? Plastic structure. Just a big no-no. You've got a very, very small magnet. This is a ferrite magnet as well, so it's a very dense, old style of magnet. It's still used today in a couple of even aftermarket brands. However, normally a lot bigger if it is, but just not gonna do anything. I mean, we'll do a little weight comparison between this and the Audison one now, just to give you an idea, but it just feels so cheap. I mean, yeah, not surprised it's here, to be honest, but let's weigh that in. So that's 261 grams over the Audison 463. Now that's the difference. So you see here the side-by-side comparison, just absolutely incredible. Like the difference in depth is firstly very noticeable, as you can see, but the weight difference is massive. The reason why the weight difference is because this is built out of something properly and this is not. The way the mid-bass transfer that you'll get, and what I was talking about earlier about that drop between a kind of 4-inch to an 8-inch frequency range, having something in that middle area, which is this product, that needs to drop that low and drop that and play that high to fill this gap, needs to be as good as it can be. And you see that side-by-side comparison there. I mean, you've got to think, right? If you had that much depth, bear in mind this goes into the same lug point, same stock location, all the holes line up perfectly. You have enough room to put this in the car. Why on earth have we not used that extra depth on this speaker? Again, back to my first point, cost. It is obviously far cheaper to produce something like this than it is an Audison Prima set. But the Audison Prima set feels really nice and solid, really sleek looking design. You can already tell just from feeling the cone, it just way beyond what you've got here. And this is the difference between aftermarket products and factory. However, this is to do with decent aftermarket gear, like brands like Audison, Hertz. These sorts of brands are very impressive in terms of how they do it. And they also solely make car audio. If you compare, on a side note, if you compare all upgraded systems from cars, all right, let's take Mercedes, Burmeister. Let's take Jaguar, Meridian. Let's take Harman Kardon from BMW. All these things, Bose from Audi, Bang & Olufsen from Audi. All these brands are home hi-fi brands predominantly. They set up being home hi-fi brands. They've moved into car audio. This, Audison as a brand, has never touched home hi-fi, never will. They're only interested in car audio. That's the mid-ranges. Moving over to the 8-inch components. If you own a 1 Series all the way up to the M5, M2, whatever it might be, E Series up to G Series, you have speakers underneath your seats. You might not know it because you can't hear them at all. That's partly down to two things. Some cars sound actually pretty decent with these. We just did a BMW X3. And that actually, to be fair to the car, sounded actually all right for these speakers individually. They weren't too bad and you actually got quite a lot of depth. But that wasn't necessarily down to the speaker. That was because how they made the box design in that year. However, this car, you can hardly hear these things. I mean, literally, like if I didn't tell you it was there, you would have no idea whatsoever. But again, plastic structure. Again, what I talked about, where you're talking about lower frequencies. Lower frequencies need a solid structure to perform in. Plastic structure like this just is not cutting it, unfortunately. Fine for a speaker adapter, more than fine for a speaker adapter. However, for the actual structure of a speaker, just not acceptable. So that is basically on here. So this weighs in at 1,097 grams. Over to the Audison set, which weigh in at 1,176 grams. So not too much difference in weight there, but just a big difference in actual performance of these. But I do always find, so where we've got packages on our website where you've got the option to just upgrade like for like, swap them for the Audison Prima range. I do find that wherever it is, whether it be Eaton, whether it be any of the other brands that make these sorts of kind of plug and play systems, they're not plug and play, but we'll use the word, where they actually go into the stock location, the difference is not massive. Okay, so the product that you get here in comparison to here, and you're doing it just as an upgrade by itself, personally, everyone's different. I find that it doesn't make too much of a difference, but I have it as one of my packages on my website because it's brilliant for staging. So when you want to stage the system, whether you want to do little upgrades and budget it at a time, it's perfect for that because you can put it in later on, amplify it, and that is where the difference is. So the amplification, once you power these Audison Prima set, oh my, they are absolutely phenomenal. They kick really, really well. And in my BMW, I've got this same setup. They sound really well. It gives me the depth that I want. What I always recommend, if you're going to be putting these in, you add amplification to power them. So whether you're amping just them by themselves or if you're amping the whole system, that is when it brings them to life because they sound absolutely phenomenal there. And then the balance between the extra depth we have from here and the extra quality we have from here, blending over to the 8-inch really does make a big difference there. So that's a bit of a comparison of the front end of the cars. Moving over to the rear speakers. On the vehicle, there is no tweeters, and bear in mind this is a brand new car, a G87 BMW M2. This is the factory rear component, no tweeter. So you get literally tweeter, 4-inch, 8-inch, and then this in the rear. So no even separation of sound for a tweeter in the back. As you can see by here, very, very similar to the front. Oh wait, because it's exactly the same. So you've got no higher frequencies. Normally when you don't have a separate tweeter, you use something called a coaxial speaker. So a tweeter separate to the actual mid-range or mid-bass is a component set. Then you have coaxial, where you have a tweeter built into the actual cone like we do here. So why on earth, again, you've got the space, why haven't you added a tweeter? Second of all, if you haven't got the space, why haven't you added a coaxial like we're doing here? So we're getting rid of that, weighs the same as that, but this is going to be upgrading the rears, and this will add a lot more higher frequencies to that rear set. Because there's no stock location for a tweeter, we can't add a separate tweeter, but that is basically the compromise. We use a coaxial design. Again, same location, same lug point, same problem in terms of this, where the size difference is identical. It's just massive. Like, you have the space, why not use it? Like, it's not visible, it's hidden. All this sort of stuff is all going to be hidden. But yeah, overall that is going to bring higher frequencies and build just a nicer sound stage across the vehicle. You're also going to drop this a lot lower than what that would, so you get a far fuller sound in the vehicle too. So that is the speakers done with. We do have an Audison Prima 10-inch sub that we will also be adding into the vehicle just to add a little bit more depth for our client, which gives a really nice option because you can unplug that really easily and return your car back to that stock look. But now time to talk about the very, very important bit. So I can move the scales away because we're not needing them. I'm now going to talk about power, okay? So power is all down to the amplifier. So this is what you get from BMW, and then this is the Audison system. So let's start off by just talking about the BMW system. So what we have here is actually two amplifiers, because on the new G series model and on all the new iDrive systems, they run two. One is for all the rest of the speakers. So you've got this side, which is what's called a RAM amp, okay? The RAM amp runs basically all of the speakers, so the tweeters, 4 inches, and then a center channel, okay? This second amplifier is called a booster amplifier, which runs the underseats. So traditionally on like the E series and the F series, they weren't using this booster amp, and it was all in one. It was one amplifier and it ran the whole lot. The second amplifier also has a lot of problems. So I don't know if you've seen on forums, so if your underseats have stopped working, it's probably because that component, that booster amp, has failed, and there's a massive lead time on them. So what we're going to be doing is basically adding in this Audison Forza amplifier. What the differences are is that control system. So this is a 12-channel amplifier with 14 channels of processing power. So this does have a processor built into it, okay? So new cars, especially cars with Harman Kardon or upgraded systems, have EQ, they have DSPs, they have all these things, and that is a tick box exercise. However, what's the point? It's kind of like dangling a carrot. Okay, I've got a DSP. I want to change my sound. Can't do it. There's no port on it. There's no nothing. You can't control the sound. It's literally saying, all right, you can have the whole world's your oyster, you have it all, but actually you can't actually touch it. That's literally what it's doing. You have all the control in the world built inside of here with the software and DSP that they've used to set this up, but you have no way of controlling that sound. You cannot delay and increase when a speaker plays. You have no control over it. You just have treble balance fader like you did in the 80s. Same bloody thing, literally nothing, no control whatsoever. However, on an Audison Forza or any Audison product with DSP, and Audison are the leaders and the forefront of DSP systems. So the Audison Forza amplifier, I'm actually currently running one of these in a car at the moment. This is a really cool bit of kit. Reason is, look how small it is. It's literally like, if I put my hand there, it's incredibly small. So one really cool thing about it being small is it can always be hidden, which is really nice, where people want that OEM look, they can hide it all in their car and they can still have that great sound. The other thing is, when we plug into it, we can tune the car to how we want it to sound. We can take songs from you, customize the songs, customize that sound for those songs for you. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an information overload for you, but you've had a good run through of what the stock G87 Harman Kardon system is, what you get for your money in terms of what you're actually going for with the Audison system. But that is enough talking. Then we'll move on to listening to the car, seeing a side-by-side comparison of how it sounded before and then after. Let's go. So I'm going to play a couple of tracks to you guys so you guys can hear how good this system is and you get to experience it for yourself. So grab your headphones, sit back, relax and join me on this absolutely incredible journey with the BMW M2. But it's in a second and you can say you're in love with them, but it won't mean anything at all. You got volume now. Not your fault. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another one back. You thought you knew, but it wasn't a fact. Known your whole life, but it was all a net. There's no meaning, but like in the best of ways. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another. So there's no depth there. Like right now, that song should be having quite a lot of depth at that lower frequency. It's just not there. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another one back. You thought you knew, but it wasn't a fact. Known your whole life, but it was all a net. There's no meaning, but like in the best of ways. On my old plane, watching my page, say they miss what I gave them. I'm doing fine now. I feel amazing. I'm out of their range. That depth of sound is now there. Don't give them no time, that's how we stay up. How we up, but you stay down. Real from the app, better play out. Spending time wind down, what is take out. So thank you so much for watching today's video. This episode of Sound Off has been absolutely incredible. We've been able to compare the brand new shape BMW M2 over to Audison, so the Harman Kardon system over to the Audison system, and hopefully you've learned a little bit more about not only maybe on your vehicle or the new shape G87 M2, but you've also learned about the new gear that you could possibly have installed in your vehicle. Now you've heard the difference between the two, and you know you can make that comparison yourself and you be the judge of which is better, our system or the factory system. So thank you again for watching and staying right to the very end. It makes a massive difference to our friends, family, and our team here. So thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next one.